Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Isaiah 41:10. My child, before you do anything else, before you scroll away, before you convince yourself that this is just another message among thousands, I need you to stop for a moment and listen carefully, because these words are not reaching you by accident. You may think you found this message, but the truth is this message found you, and there is a reason for that. I know the doubts already forming inside your mind. You wonder if this is coincidence. You wonder if these words could really be meant for you. You wonder if perhaps you are reading too much into a simple moment. But what if I told you that the very fact you are here right now is part of something much bigger than you realize? What if I told you that heaven has been watching every step you have taken, every battle, every disappointment, every lonely night, every silent prayer, every moment when you smiled for others while secretly falling apart inside? I saw all of it. Not one moment escaped my sight. Not one tear went unnoticed. Not one cry for help disappeared into the darkness. I was there, even when you felt abandoned, even when you felt forgotten, even when you wondered if anyone truly understood what you were carrying. I was there, and that is why I need you to hear this message all the way through. Because there is something you do not yet understand about your story. Something the darkness never expected. Something the enemy failed to calculate. But before I reveal it, I need you to remember something. Think back to the version of yourself from months ago, perhaps even years ago. The version of you that was exhausted. The version of you that almost stopped believing. The version of you that was carrying burdens too heavy to explain. Do you remember that person? Do you remember how close you came to giving up? Not necessarily on life, not necessarily on your dreams, but on hope. On believing things could get better. On believing your prayers mattered. On believing your future could be different from your past. There were moments when you felt yourself fading. Moments when disappointment piled upon disappointment. Moments when it seemed as though every door closed at once. Moments when the silence felt louder than any answer. And during those moments, a quiet voice whispered to you. A voice filled with discouragement. A voice filled with fear. A voice that wanted you to believe that nothing would ever change. That voice wanted you to stop moving forward. It wanted you to surrender before your breakthrough arrived. It wanted you to quit before you discovered what I was doing behind the scenes. My child, what you must understand is this. The enemy never needed to destroy you. He only needed you to stop. He only needed you to walk away. He only needed you to believe that your struggle was meaningless. Because if he could convince you that nothing was happening, then you might abandon the very path that was leading toward your blessing. But something happened that surprised him. Something happened that he never anticipated. You survived. You are still here. You may not feel strong. You may not feel victorious. You may not feel like a conqueror. Yet here you are, still breathing, still searching, still hoping, still listening, still standing. And that matters more than you realize. Because the enemy expected your pain to become your ending. Instead, it became your testimony. Listen carefully now. This next part is important. There were battles you know about, and there were battles you never saw. There were dangers I protected you from that you will never fully understand in this lifetime. There were conversations held behind closed doors. There were plans formed against you. There were opportunities that looked good but would have destroyed your peace. There were relationships you desperately wanted to keep that would have delayed your purpose. And because I love you, I intervened. Not always in ways you understood. Not always in ways you appreciated at the time. But I intervened. Some doors closed because I closed them. Some people left because I allowed them to leave. Some delays happened because the timing was not yet right. You called it rejection. I called it protection. You called it loss. I called it preservation. You called it abandonment. I called it preparation. And one day you will look back and understand that what hurt you was often the very thing that saved you. But there is another truth I must reveal. The darkness thought you would quit by now. It really did. The attacks became heavier because the opposition believed you were reaching your limit. The pressure increased because it assumed you were about to surrender. The discouragement intensified because it believed your strength was gone. Yet somehow you continued. Somehow you made it through another day. Then another, and now you are here, listening to these words, hearing my voice, standing at the beginning of a new chapter. No, everything has not changed overnight. No, every problem has not disappeared. No, every prayer has not yet been answered. But something significant is happening. A shift has already begun, quietly, deeply, powerfully. And this shift starts with a simple realization. You are not the same person who entered the storm. The suffering changed you. The waiting changed you. The battles changed you. But not in the way the enemy intended. The enemy wanted the fire to consume you. Instead, it refined you. The enemy wanted the pressure to crush you. Instead, it strengthened you. The enemy wanted the darkness to bury you. Instead, it taught you how to find my presence when everything else disappeared. You learned things in the valley that you could never have learned on the mountaintop. You discovered strength you did not know existed. You discovered resilience that had been hidden inside you all along. And even now, there is more within you than you realize. Much more. That is why I brought you here today. Not merely to comfort you, not merely to encourage you, but to awaken you. To remind you of who has been walking beside you all along. To remind you that your story is not over. To remind you that survival itself is evidence of my hand upon your life. Because if the darkness truly had control, you would not be here. If the enemy truly had the final word, you would not be listening right now. If your suffering had been pointless, I would not be speaking to you in this moment. But here you are, still standing, still chosen, still protected, still loved, still called. And my child, this is only the beginning. Because in the next part, I am going to reveal the night nobody saw. The night heaven remembers, even if the world never knew it happened. The night when you thought you were alone, but you were closer to me than ever before. Stay with me, do not leave now, because what I am about to reveal next may completely change the way you see your entire journey. You have kept count of my wanderings, put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book? Psalm 56:8. My child, there is a night you remember, and there is a night heaven remembers. The two are not exactly the same. You remember the pain, I remember your courage. You remember feeling abandoned, I remember staying beside you. You remember the darkness. I remember the light that was still alive inside you. And today, I want to talk about that night, not because I wish to reopen old wounds, not because I want you to relive your suffering, but because there is something hidden inside that memory that you still have not fully understood. Stay with me. This next part matters deeply. There was a moment when nobody saw what you were carrying. Nobody knew how exhausted you truly were. Nobody knew how close you felt to breaking. People saw your smile. People heard your words. People assumed you were fine. But behind closed doors, it was different. Much different. You carried conversations in your mind that nobody else could hear. You fought battles that left no visible scars. You walked through days where your body was present, but your heart felt miles away. You kept going when everything inside you wanted to stop. And perhaps the hardest part was this. You felt alone. Not physically, spiritually, emotionally, deeply. You wondered if anyone truly understood. You wondered if anyone noticed. You wondered if anyone cared. And sometimes, if you are honest, you even wondered whether I was listening at all. You prayed, then waited. You hoped, then waited. You believed, then waited. And the silence seemed endless. My beloved, I know those moments. I know the nights when you stared into darkness, unable to sleep. I know the mornings when getting out of bed felt like carrying a mountain. I know the tears that never reached another person's eyes. I know the prayers that never left your lips because you were too tired to speak them. I know every one of them because I was there, closer than you realized, closer than you believed, closer than your own breath. But pain has a way of distorting vision. When suffering lasts longer than expected, it begins to whisper lies. It tells you that you have been forgotten. It tells you that your story does not matter. It tells you that nobody sees your struggle. It tells you that your tears are falling into emptiness. But my child, nothing could be further from the truth. Every tear mattered. Every prayer mattered. Every act of endurance mattered. Even the moments when you simply survived mattered, especially those moments, because there were nights when survival itself became an act of faith. You may not have felt brave, yet you kept going. You may not have felt strong, yet you kept breathing. You may not have felt hopeful, yet you kept moving forward and heaven noticed. The world celebrates visible victories, but heaven often celebrates hidden endurance. The world applauds those who stand on stages. Heaven applauds those who keep trusting in the dark. The world notices achievements. Heaven notices perseverance. And there were nights when all you did was survive. Yet those nights became some of your greatest victories. Because the enemy expected something different. Listen carefully. This is important. The darkness was watching those moments too. Not to help you, not to comfort you, but to convince you that you had reached your limit. It watched the disappointment. It watched the heartbreak. It watched the delay. It watched the unanswered questions. And it believed it had finally found the point where you would surrender. The point where you would stop believing. The point where you would finally say, I can't do this anymore. But something unexpected happened. You survived that night. Then you survived another, then another, then another. And every sunrise became proof that the enemy's prediction was wrong. Every morning became evidence that my hand was still upon your life. You thought you were barely hanging on. But heaven saw something different. Heaven saw resilience. Heaven saw faith. Heaven saw a fighter who refused to disappear. Even when your strength felt gone. Even when your emotions were exhausted. Even when your future looked uncertain. You continued, not perfectly, not confidently, but faithfully. And that changed everything. Because there is something the darkness never understands. The enemy understands fear. The enemy understands pain. The enemy understands discouragement. But the enemy does not understand what happens when a child of God refuses to quit. That is where its calculations fail. That is where its plans collapse. That is where its predictions become useless. Because every day you continued was another day its strategy failed. Every prayer you whispered was another defeat. Every step forward was another loss for the darkness. Even when you could not see it. Even when you could not feel it. Even when nothing around you appeared to change. A battle was being won, quietly, slowly, powerfully. And there is something else you need to know. Many of the battles you thought were destroying you were actually exposing what was already inside you. The pressure did not create your strength, it revealed it. The storm did not create your endurance, it uncovered it. The darkness did not create your faith, it showed you that your faith was stronger than you imagined. You discovered parts of yourself that comfort could never reveal. You discovered courage hiding beneath fear. You discovered endurance hiding beneath exhaustion. You discovered hope hiding beneath disappointment. And although you may not fully recognize it yet, you are not the same person who entered that season. Something inside you changed. Something inside you matured. Something inside you awakened. The very darkness that was supposed to stop you ended up developing you. The very suffering that was supposed to silence you ended up strengthening you. And one day, you will look back and realize that your survival was never accidental. It was intentional, it was protected, it was guided, because I never left you. Not for a moment, not during the tears, not during the confusion, not during the loneliness, not during the heartbreak, not during the waiting. I was there through all of it. And my child, there is one memory from that season that you still misunderstand. One event that still feels painful. One wound that still raises questions. You have asked why it happened. You have asked why it hurt so much. You have asked why I allowed it. But what if that very event was connected to your protection? What if what looked like abandonment was actually rescue? What if what felt like loss was actually preparation? What if the thing that hurt you most prevented something far worse? You cannot see the entire picture yet, but you will. Soon, because the story is bigger than you realize, much bigger. And the next truth I am about to reveal changes everything. The enemy never planned to destroy you all at once. That was never the strategy. The real strategy was far more subtle, far more dangerous, far more deceptive. The enemy had a secret expectation, an expectation it believed would eventually come true. And in the next part, I will reveal exactly what that expectation was and why your survival completely shattered it. Stay with me, because what comes next may finally explain the battle you've been fighting all this time. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Galatians 6:9. My child, there is something you need to understand, something the enemy never wanted you to discover, something hidden beneath every delay, every disappointment, every setback, every unanswered prayer, every season when you wondered if anything was changing. The enemy had a secret expectation, not a plan to destroy you overnight, not a plan to take everything from you in a single moment, not a plan to defeat you through one massive attack. No, the strategy was much quieter than that, much slower, much more deceptive. The enemy was waiting for exhaustion to do what opposition could not, waiting for discouragement to accomplish what fear could not, waiting for weariness to finish what suffering started. Listen carefully. This next truth may change how you see your entire journey. The enemy never needed to destroy you. The enemy only needed you to quit. That was always the goal, to make you stop praying, to make you stop believing, to make you stop hoping, to make you stop trusting, to make you walk away moments before your breakthrough arrived. Because the enemy understands something about human nature. He knows that many people do not lose because they lack ability. Many people lose because they become tired. They stop too soon. They surrender too early. They abandon the process before the harvest appears. And so the enemy watched you, not because he feared your weakness, but because he feared what would happen if you survived long enough to discover your strength. My beloved, think back to your hardest season. What was it really like? Perhaps there was no dramatic disaster, no single catastrophic event. Instead, it was one disappointment after another, one delay after another, one frustration after another, one unanswered question after another. The pressure accumulated slowly, quietly, relentlessly, like water dripping on stone. Day after day, week after week, month after month. The enemy knew that a sudden attack might push you closer to me, but a prolonged struggle, that was different. A prolonged struggle creates questions, it creates doubts, it creates fatigue, it whispers dangerous thoughts. Thoughts like, maybe nothing is ever going to change. Maybe God forgot about me. Maybe my prayers don't matter. Maybe I should stop expecting anything good. Have you heard those thoughts before? Of course you have. Most of my children have. And when those thoughts appeared, the enemy believed victory was near. Every time disappointment came, every time someone betrayed you, every time a door closed, every time you waited longer than expected, the darkness whispered the same message: just quit. Not loudly, not aggressively, quietly, patiently, repeatedly. Because sometimes the most dangerous attack is not the one that shocks you. It is the one that slowly drains you. The one that convinces you that surrender is reasonable. The one that makes giving up feel logical. The one that disguises defeat as acceptance. The enemy hoped you would become tired enough to stop fighting, tired enough to stop believing, tired enough to stop moving forward. And there were moments when you came very close. Closer than anyone realizes, closer than even you remember. There were days when your heart felt empty, days when hope felt distant, days when faith felt fragile, days when continuing seemed impossible, but somehow you continued. And that is where everything began to change. Because there is something the enemy never fully understands. He understands human weakness, but he does not understand my grace. He understands pain, but he does not understand my sustaining power. He understands fear, but he does not understand my faithfulness. The enemy calculated your strength, but he forgot to calculate mine. And that mistake changed everything. Because every day you remained standing, my strength carried you. Every day you continued believing, my spirit sustained you. Every day you refused to quit, heaven was adding strength to your soul. Even when you could not feel it, even when you could not see it, even when you believed nothing was happening, something was happening. Deep beneath the surface, the enemy thought you were weakening, but you were actually developing endurance. The enemy thought you were losing ground, but your roots were growing deeper. The enemy thought the delay was destroying your faith, but the delay was strengthening it, my child. Some of the strongest trees grow during storms, not after them, during them, because resistance forces roots to grow deeper. Pressure forces stability to develop. Wind forces strength to emerge. And what was happening in your life was very similar. The storm was creating something inside you, something the enemy never saw coming. Endurance, spiritual resilience, unshakable faith. The kind of strength that cannot be created through comfort. The kind of wisdom that cannot be learned through ease. The kind of trust that only develops when everything else feels uncertain. You thought you were merely surviving, but heaven was training you, preparing you, strengthening you, transforming you. And while the enemy was celebrating temporary setbacks, heaven was preparing permanent growth. There is a reason you survived what should have broken you. There is a reason you are still here. There is a reason your story continues. Because my purpose for your life is larger than the attack against it. My calling on your life is stronger than the opposition against it. My plans for your future are greater than the obstacles before you. The enemy saw your current struggle. I saw your future victory. The enemy focused on your wounds. I focused on your destiny. The enemy looked at where you were. I looked at where I am taking you. And my vision is always greater, always. That is why you must not judge your story by a single chapter. You cannot measure your future by your current circumstances. You cannot determine your destiny based on temporary pain. Because what looks permanent today may soon become a testimony tomorrow. What feels like an ending today may become a beginning tomorrow. What seems impossible today may become evidence of my power tomorrow. And the enemy knows this. That is why he worked so hard to make you quit early. Because if you remain standing, if you remain faithful, if you continue moving forward, eventually you will see what heaven has been preparing all along. And that possibility terrifies darkness more than you know. Because there is something happening right now that the enemy never anticipated. You are stronger than when the battle started. You are wiser than when the storm began. You are closer to me than before the struggle arrived. And that means the attack is already failing. But there is another truth you have not yet seen. A truth even more surprising. The enemy was not the only one watching your struggle. Heaven was watching too. Every prayer, every tear, every act of perseverance, every moment you chose not to give up. Nothing went unnoticed. Nothing was wasted. And soon you will begin to understand why. Because what looked like silence was not silence at all. What looked like delay was not delay at all. What looked like abandonment was not abandonment at all. Something was happening behind the scenes. Something far greater than you realize. Something that explains why certain doors closed, why certain people left, why certain plans fell apart. And in the next part, I will reveal the truth that changes everything. the reason you lasted longer than darkness expected, the reason heaven protected you in ways you never saw, the reason rejection was often rescue. Stay with me, because the next revelation may completely transform how you see every setback you have ever experienced. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. My beloved child, there is a question that has followed you for a long time, a question you may have asked quietly, a question you may never have spoken aloud. Why did certain things fall apart? Why did certain people leave? Why did some opportunities disappear just when they seemed within reach? Why did doors close after you prayed so hard for them to open? Why did life sometimes move in the exact opposite direction of what you expected? For a long time, you interpreted those moments as loss, as rejection, as disappointment, as evidence that things were not working out. But what if you have been looking at those moments from the wrong side of the story? Stay with me, because what I am about to reveal may change how you see your entire past. My child, not every closed door was an attack. Not every disappointment was a defeat. Not every delay was punishment. In fact, some of the things that hurt you most were actually protecting you. I know that may be difficult to understand, because protection rarely feels like protection in the moment. Protection often feels like frustration. Protection often feels like confusion. Protection often feels like loss. When Noah entered the ark, the door closed behind him. From the outside, it looked restrictive. From heaven's perspective, it was salvation. When Joseph was sold into slavery, it looked like betrayal. From heaven's perspective, it was positioning. When David was forced into the wilderness, it looked like exile. From heaven's perspective, it was preparation. And in your own life, many events that appeared painful were actually serving a hidden purpose. There were relationships you desperately wanted to keep, relationships you prayed over, relationships you fought for, relationships you thought would remain forever. Yet they ended. And when they ended, it felt as though something valuable had been taken from you. You questioned yourself. You questioned others. Perhaps you even questioned me. But my child, some people were assigned to a chapter, not your entire story. Some people were connected to your past, but not your future. And although their departure hurt, their presence beyond a certain point would have hurt even more. What felt like abandonment was often protection. What felt like rejection was often redirection. What felt like loss was often rescue. You could not see it then, but one day you will, because I see every road. I see every outcome. I see every possibility. I see what would have happened if certain doors remained open. And there are paths I refuse to allow, because they would have taken you away from your purpose. Listen carefully. This next part is important. There are blessings you thank me for, and there are blessings you have not yet recognized. One of the greatest blessings is often the disaster that never happened, the accident that never occurred, the betrayal you never discovered, the opportunity you never accepted, the conversation you never had, the relationship that ended before causing deeper damage, the door that closed before leading you somewhere destructive. You only see what happened. I also see what did not happen. And many times my protection was hidden inside what appeared to be disappointment. My child, there were moments when you begged for something, moments when you believed a particular answer would solve everything. You thought, if this door opens, everything will change. If this person stays, everything will be okay. If this opportunity works out, my problems will disappear. But because I see what you cannot see, I sometimes answered differently. Not because I ignored your prayer, not because I did not care, but because my love refused to give you something that would eventually harm you. A loving parent does not grant every request. A loving parent protects, and sometimes protection requires saying no. Sometimes protection requires delay. Sometimes protection requires removal. Sometimes protection requires separation, not because you are being punished, because you are being preserved. And this is one of the reasons you survived longer than darkness expected. The enemy believed those losses would destroy you. The enemy believed those disappointments would break your faith. The enemy believed those closed doors would make you walk away. But something unexpected happened. Those same experiences pushed you closer to me. Those same disappointments deepened your dependence on me. Those same losses revealed where your true security was found. The enemy intended those events to weaken you. Instead, they strengthened you. And that was never part of his plan. The darkness expected collapse. Instead, it witnessed growth. The darkness expected surrender. Instead, it witnessed perseverance. The darkness expected bitterness. Instead, it witnessed transformation. My beloved, you survived because I was protecting you in ways you did not recognize. There were unseen battles taking place around you. Battles you never witnessed. Battles you never understood. Battles that heaven fought on your behalf. The reason certain attacks failed was not because they were weak. The reason they failed was because I stood between them and you. The reason certain plans never succeeded was because my hand intervened. The reason certain outcomes never occurred was because my protection was already in motion. Even now, there are things I am shielding you from that you do not yet know about. There are battles being fought beyond your awareness. There are dangers being redirected. There are assignments of darkness being canceled. There are attacks being blocked before they ever reach you. And because you cannot see them, you sometimes assume nothing is happening. But, my child, just because you cannot see protection does not mean protection is absent. Just because you cannot see movement does not mean heaven is still. Just because you cannot see progress does not mean progress has stopped. Some of my greatest works happen behind the scenes. Quietly, patiently, powerfully, exactly when nobody notices. Think about a seed beneath the soil. From the surface, it appears inactive, nothing visible, nothing impressive, nothing exciting. Yet beneath the ground, life is emerging. Roots are growing, strength is developing, transformation is occurring. And the same has been true in your life. For a long time, heaven was working beneath the surface, building things you could not yet see, creating foundations you could not yet appreciate, preparing outcomes you could not yet imagine. And because growth was hidden, you thought nothing was happening. But something was happening, something important, something powerful, something that explains why you are still here. You survived because my protection was stronger than the attack. You survived because my purpose was greater than the opposition. You survived because my plans were larger than the obstacle. And my child, there is one particular moment you still do not fully understand. One event, one disappointment, one painful chapter, a chapter that still raises questions in your heart. You still wonder why it happened. You still wonder why it hurt so deeply. You still wonder why I allowed it. But what if that chapter became the very moment your future was preserved? What if the greatest protection came disguised as your greatest heartbreak? What if the event you mourned was actually the turning point that saved your destiny? You are not ready to see the entire answer yet, but you are getting closer, because the next truth is even more surprising. The breaking point that was supposed to destroy you actually became the moment everything began to change. Stay with me, because in the next part, I will reveal the moment the enemy thought you were finished, and why heaven knew your story was only beginning. If you are still here after everything you have survived, comment, "God protected me more than I knew." And if this message is speaking directly to your season, subscribe and stay connected. The next revelation may explain the very chapter you have struggled to understand. My child, there is a moment in your story that still hurts when you think about it. A moment you rarely talk about. A moment that changed something inside you. Perhaps nobody knows how deeply it affected you. Perhaps you never found the words to explain it, but I know exactly which moment it was. I know because I was there. I saw the instant your heart sank. I saw the disappointment hit you. I saw the shock. I saw the confusion. I saw the silence that followed, and most of all, I saw what happened afterward. You see, there are certain moments in life that divide a person's story into two parts: before and after. Before that moment, you were hopeful. After that moment, something felt different. Before that moment, you believed things would work out a certain way. After that moment, certainty disappeared. Before that moment, your expectations felt alive. After that moment, disappointment settled in. You know exactly what I am talking about, because even now, as these words reach you, a specific memory may be surfacing. A conversation, a betrayal, a loss, a rejection, a failure, a goodbye, a closed door, an unexpected ending, something that seemed to change everything. And when it happened, you thought your story was falling apart. You thought the damage would be permanent. You thought recovery might never come. You thought the pain would define the rest of your life. But my child, that was the moment darkness miscalculated. That was the moment everything began to change. Not because the pain was good, not because the suffering was necessary in itself, but because what the enemy intended for destruction became the very place where I began transforming you. The enemy saw collapse, I saw construction. The enemy saw an ending, I saw a beginning. The enemy saw weakness, I saw hidden strength emerging. And while you were focused on what was leaving your life, I was focused on what was being born inside you. Listen carefully. This next truth is important. Many people believe breaking points are signs of failure, but often they are places of revelation. Breaking points reveal what comfort hides. Breaking points reveal what pressure exposes. Breaking points reveal what truly lives inside the heart. When everything was easy, there were things about yourself you never knew. You never knew how resilient you could become. You never knew how much faith you actually carried. You never knew how deeply rooted your spirit truly was. Because strength often remains invisible until resistance arrives. And resistance arrived, the storm arrived, the pressure arrived, the heartbreak arrived, and suddenly everything hidden began to emerge. The version of you that exists today was not created by success. It was forged through survival. The wisdom you carry now was purchased through experience. The discernment you now possess was shaped through disappointment. The maturity inside you grew during seasons you never would have chosen. You wanted relief. Instead, you received growth. You wanted answers. Instead, you received endurance. You wanted immediate rescue. Instead, you received transformation. At the time, it felt unfair. At the time, it felt confusing. At the time, it felt unbearable. But now you are beginning to see something different. You survived, and survival changed you, my beloved. There was a day when the enemy expected you to stay down. A day when darkness believed it had finally succeeded. A day when the attack seemed too strong, the disappointment too deep, the exhaustion too overwhelming, the grief too heavy, the loneliness too painful, the uncertainty too great. Everything pointed toward surrender. Everything pointed toward defeat. Everything pointed toward the conclusion that you could not continue. But somehow, you stood up again. Maybe not immediately, maybe not confidently, maybe not perfectly, but you stood up. And when you stood up, something happened in the unseen realm. The enemy realized you were not as fragile as he thought, because the attack revealed something he could not understand. You had become stronger than your circumstances, not because the circumstances were small, but because my presence within you was greater. You thought you were barely surviving. But heaven saw a warrior learning how to endure. You thought you were hanging on by a thread, but heaven saw roots growing deeper than ever before. You thought the storm was destroying you, but heaven saw the storm revealing who you truly were. My child, the strongest faith is not faith that never struggles. The strongest faith is faith that remains after struggling. The strongest faith is faith that survives questions, faith that survives waiting, faith that survives disappointment, faith that survives silence. And that is exactly the kind of faith developing inside you. Not shallow faith, not temporary faith, not emotional faith that only exists when everything goes well, but enduring faith, the kind of faith that survives darkness, the kind of faith that survives delays, the kind of faith that survives pain. And because of that, your future is becoming stronger than your past. There is a reason the enemy fought so hard against you. There is a reason the pressure felt so intense. There is a reason the attacks kept coming. The enemy rarely wastes energy on something that carries no purpose. The enemy saw potential before you saw it. The enemy saw influence before you recognized it. The enemy saw destiny before you understood it. And that is why opposition increased. Not because you were weak, but because there was something valuable inside you. Something worth protecting, something worth fighting for, something worth surviving for. And despite every attack, it remains. Despite every disappointment, it remains. Despite every betrayal, it remains. Despite every setback, it remains. The purpose I placed within you is still alive. The calling I gave you is still alive. The future I prepared for you is still alive. Nothing has been lost. Nothing has been destroyed. Nothing has escaped my hand. You may feel delayed, but you are not abandoned. You may feel wounded, but you are not defeated. You may feel tired, but you are not finished. In fact, you are closer than you realize. Closer to understanding, closer to healing, closer to breakthrough, closer to fulfillment, closer to the answer than you have ever been before. And here is the truth that changes everything. The breaking point you feared most became the place where your new strength was born. The heartbreak became a doorway. The disappointment became a lesson. The delay became preparation. The struggle became training. The pain became transformation. The very thing that was supposed to end your story became the chapter that strengthened it. And now darkness faces a problem. Because the person standing today is not the same person who entered the storm. You see differently, you think differently, you pray differently, you trust differently. You have endured too much to be easily shaken now. You have survived too much to quit now. You have come too far to turn back now. But my child, the most surprising part is still ahead. Because while you thought the battle was about surviving, something else was happening beneath the surface. Something hidden, something powerful, something that the enemy never saw developing. While darkness focused on your struggle, heaven was growing roots, deep roots, unshakable roots. And in the next part, I will reveal what was happening in the dark that changed everything. Because the place that looked empty was actually the place where your greatest growth began. But blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in Him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. Jeremiah 17:7-8. My child, there was a season in your life that felt empty, a season that felt silent, a season that felt as though nothing was moving. Nothing was changing, nothing was improving. You prayed, yet nothing seemed to happen. You waited, yet nothing seemed to happen. You trusted, yet nothing seemed to happen. And after a while, a dangerous thought began to form. A thought that visits many weary hearts. A thought that whispers in the darkness. A thought that says, maybe nothing is growing. Maybe nothing is changing. Maybe all of this waiting is pointless. My beloved, that was exactly what the enemy wanted you to believe. Because the enemy understands something about human nature. People often trust what they can see. They trust visible movement, visible progress, visible success, visible evidence. But my kingdom often works differently. Some of the most important things I do are invisible at first. The seed beneath the soil is invisible. The roots beneath the ground are invisible. The foundation beneath a building is invisible. Yet these hidden things determine everything that comes later. And that is exactly what was happening in your life. While you were watching the surface, I was working beneath it. While you were looking for visible change, I was creating invisible strength. While you were asking why nothing seemed to be happening, heaven was building roots, deep roots, strong roots, roots capable of surviving storms that had not even arrived yet. Listen carefully, because this truth may explain years of your life. The season you called empty was not empty. The season you called stagnant was not stagnant. The season you called wasted was not wasted. It was preparation. You simply could not see it, my child. When a tree first begins to grow, much of its development happens underground. No applause, no recognition, no visible reward, no impressive results, just roots, quietly growing, quietly stretching, quietly strengthening. And because the growth is hidden, people assume nothing is happening. But the strongest growth often happens underground. The strongest preparation often happens in silence. The strongest transformation often happens where nobody can see, including you. And that was your story. There were years when you felt overlooked, years when you felt forgotten, years when you wondered why others seemed to move ahead while you remained in place. You watched others celebrate victories. You watched others receive opportunities. You watched others achieve milestones. Meanwhile, your own life seemed unchanged. And sometimes you wondered if I had overlooked you. But I had not. I was simply doing deeper work. Because what I planned to build through you required stronger roots. A shallow tree grows quickly. A deep tree grows slowly. But when storms arrive, only one survives. The enemy saw the delay and laughed. The enemy saw the silence and celebrated. The enemy saw the waiting and assumed heaven had abandoned you. But the enemy could only see the surface. He could not see the roots. He could not see what was happening underneath. He could not see the endurance being developed. He could not see the wisdom being formed. He could not see the discernment being sharpened. He could not see the spiritual authority being established. He could not see the strength emerging inside you. And because he could not see it, he misunderstood your season. Darkness thought you were weakening. You were actually deepening. Darkness thought you were falling behind. You were actually being prepared. Darkness thought you were stuck. You were actually becoming anchored. The enemy made the same mistake many people make. He judged your life by what was visible. Heaven judged your life by what was becoming permanent. And those are very different things. My child, have you ever noticed how some people collapse when difficulties arrive? Everything appears strong until pressure comes. Everything appears stable until the storm begins. Everything appears secure until resistance shows up. Then suddenly everything falls apart. Why? Because roots matter more than appearances. Foundations matter more than impressions. Depth matters more than speed. And while others were building appearances, I was building foundations inside you. That is why your waiting season was longer than expected. That is why your preparation season felt difficult. That is why your growth often felt invisible. Because I was preparing you for something that required stability, not temporary success, not temporary excitement, not temporary emotion, something lasting, something durable, something capable of surviving future storms. And my child, there were moments when your roots grew the deepest, not during victories, not during celebrations, not during easy seasons, but during the nights nobody saw, during the tears, during the uncertainty, during the waiting, during the loneliness, during the moments when all you could do was trust me one more day. Every time you chose faith over fear, another root grew deeper. Every time you chose hope over despair, another root grew deeper. Every time you continued despite exhaustion, another root grew deeper. And over time, something powerful happened. You became stronger than your circumstances, not because life became easier, because your roots became deeper. This is why the enemy's attacks began losing effectiveness, because attacks that once would have shaken you no longer had the same power. Things that once devastated you now became temporary setbacks. Challenges that once overwhelmed you became manageable. not because the attacks became weaker, because you became stronger. You began developing spiritual stability. And spiritual stability terrifies darkness, because stable people are difficult to manipulate. Stable people are difficult to discourage. Stable people are difficult to control through fear. The enemy depends on instability. The enemy depends on panic. The enemy depends on emotional exhaustion. But when roots grow deep, fear loses influence. When roots grow deep, panic loses authority. When roots grow deep, storms lose their ability to uproot what heaven has planted. That is exactly what happened to you. The storms came, yet you remained. The pressure came, yet you remained. The disappointments came, yet you remained. The delays came, yet you remained. The betrayals came, yet you remained. Not because you were perfect, not because you were fearless, not because you never struggled, but because your roots were growing where nobody could see. Even you, my beloved, there is something else the enemy failed to understand. Roots do not merely help a tree survive storms. Roots also prepare it for future fruit. The deeper the roots, the greater the harvest. The stronger the foundation, the greater the structure. The greater the preparation, the greater the responsibility that can be carried. Which means your hidden season was not only about survival, it was also about preparation. Preparation for blessings, preparation for influence, preparation for opportunities, preparation for assignments you could not yet see. The waiting season was creating capacity, capacity to handle what is coming, capacity to steward what is coming, capacity to remain humble when favor arrives, capacity to remain faithful when blessings increase. And my child, that is why your growth mattered so much. Because what I am preparing for you requires the version of you that emerged from this season, not the version that entered it, the stronger version, the wiser version, the deeper version, the more resilient version, the version standing here today. And now the enemy faces another problem, because while he was focused on stopping your progress, heaven was building something unstoppable. While darkness watched the surface, heaven strengthened the roots. While the enemy counted delays, heaven counted development. And soon, those hidden roots will begin producing visible evidence, visible fruit, visible change, visible signs that your season is shifting. But before the fruit appears, there is one more truth you need to understand, a truth about who you have become. Because the person standing today possesses a strength they still do not fully recognize, a strength that was forged through every battle, a strength that survived every attack, a strength the enemy never expected to see. And in the next part, I will reveal the strength you didn't know you had, and why that hidden strength is the very thing darkness fears most. My beloved child, there is something about yourself that you still do not fully recognize. Even after everything you have survived, even after every battle, every disappointment, every delay, every heartbreak, there is still a part of your own story you struggle to see clearly. You see the scars, I see the strength. You remember the pain. I remember the perseverance. You focus on the moments when you felt weak. I focus on the moments when you kept going anyway. And that is why I need you to listen carefully, because what I am about to reveal changes how you see your entire journey. For a long time, you believed suffering was taking something away from you. You believed the storms were slowly draining you. You believed the attacks were reducing you, weakening you, diminishing you, breaking you apart. And from where you stood, it certainly looked that way. There were days when your confidence disappeared, days when your energy vanished, days when your heart felt exhausted, days when your future felt uncertain, days when even simple decisions felt heavy. You looked at yourself and wondered what had happened. You wondered where the old version of you had gone. You wondered why everything felt different. But, my child, the suffering was not destroying your identity, it was revealing it. That is the part the enemy never understood, and perhaps the part you did not understand either. Because true identity is not revealed during comfort, it is revealed during pressure. Anyone can appear strong when life is easy. Anyone can appear confident when everything is working. Anyone can appear faithful when prayers are answered immediately. But when the storm arrives, when the waiting stretches longer than expected, when the answers seem delayed, when disappointment appears again and again, that is when identity emerges. That is when what lives inside the heart becomes visible. And what emerged from your life surprised even you, because despite everything that happened, you remained. Not perfectly, not without tears, not without questions, not without moments of fear, but you remained. And that says something powerful about who you truly are. My child, think about everything you have survived, not just recently, throughout your entire life. There were moments that should have stopped you, moments that should have broken your spirit, moments that should have convinced you to give up completely, yet somehow you continued. At times you moved forward crawling rather than walking. At times you moved forward through tears. At times you moved forward with trembling faith. But you moved forward, and every step revealed something hidden, something the enemy desperately hoped you would never discover. You are stronger than you think. Much stronger, not because you never struggle, but because you keep rising after struggle. Not because you never cry, but because your tears never become your ending. Not because you never feel fear, but because fear never gets the final word. The enemy spent years trying to convince you that weakness defined you. Yet every season proved the opposite, because weakness alone could not have carried you this far. Weakness alone could not have survived what you survived. Weakness alone could not have endured what you endured. There is strength inside you, a strength that heaven has been developing for years, a strength that did not appear overnight, a strength forged through every battle you wished you could avoid. And now that strength is becoming visible. My beloved, do you know why certain attacks felt so intense? Do you know why certain seasons seemed unusually difficult? Because there was something inside you worth fighting against. The enemy does not spend energy attacking what carries no purpose. Darkness does not invest resources into something insignificant. The intensity of opposition often reveals the significance of the assignment. And there were times when darkness saw your future more clearly than you did. It saw your potential, it saw your influence, it saw your ability to help others survive what you survived. It saw the testimony being formed, it saw the strength emerging. And because it saw those things, it launched attacks designed to stop them before they fully developed. But those attacks failed, not because they were weak, because my purpose was stronger. And now the very battles meant to destroy your confidence have become evidence of your resilience. Think about that for a moment. The enemy wanted you to see yourself as defeated. Instead, your survival proves your strength. The enemy wanted you to see yourself as fragile. Instead, your endurance proves your resilience. The enemy wanted you to see yourself as abandoned. Instead, your survival proves my presence. The evidence has been in front of you all along. You simply interpreted it through pain. But heaven sees it differently. Heaven sees a child who refused to disappear, a child who kept trusting, a child who kept believing, a child who kept standing, even when standing hurt. And my child, that strength did not come from your circumstances. It came from me working within you, because there were many moments when your own strength was gone. You know that. There were nights when you had nothing left, nothing to give, nothing to prove, nothing to rely upon. And yet somehow another day came. Another step happened. Another prayer emerged. Another act of faith appeared. That was not an accident. That was my hand sustaining you. That was my spirit carrying you. That was my presence strengthening you when your own strength had reached its limit, which means something very important. The strength inside you is no longer dependent upon circumstances. It is rooted somewhere deeper. and that makes it difficult to destroy, because circumstances change. But what I establish within you remains. Storms come and go, but what I establish within you remains. Opinions come and go, but what I establish within you remains. Attacks come and go, but what I establish within you remains. And what I have been establishing inside you is becoming stronger than anything happening around you. That is why you no longer respond to certain things the way you once did. Have you noticed that? Certain disappointments still hurt, but they no longer destroy you. Certain delays still frustrate you, but they no longer define you. Certain attacks still come, but they no longer carry the same authority, because you have changed. Quietly, gradually, powerfully, you have become stronger, not harder. Stronger, there is a difference. Hardness builds walls. Strength builds stability. Hardness creates distance. Strength creates endurance. Hardness grows from bitterness. Strength grows from healing. And what I have been producing inside you is not hardness. It is strength. The kind of strength that remains compassionate. The kind of strength that remains faithful. The kind of strength that remains humble. The kind of strength that continues loving despite disappointment. That kind of strength terrifies darkness, because darkness cannot easily manipulate someone who knows who they are. And that is where the next transformation begins. Identity. For years, the enemy tried to define you through your wounds, through your failures, through your disappointments, through your fears. But those things are not your identity. They are chapters, not definitions, experiences, not identities, moments, not destinies. Your identity was never found in what happened to you. Your identity was always found in who I created you to be. And now you are beginning to see that. Slowly, clearly, powerfully, the storm revealed it. The waiting revealed it. The battles revealed it. And soon, everyone else will begin to see it too. Because the strength developing inside you was never meant to stay hidden forever. Soon, it will become visible. Soon, it will produce evidence. Soon, it will affect people around you. Soon, it will open doors you never imagined. But before that happens, there is another truth you must understand. Because strength alone was never the goal. The goal was transformation. And there are certain people from your past who played a role in that transformation. Some stayed, some left, some betrayed you, some disappointed you. And what looked like loss was actually creating space. Space for something new, space for something greater, space for the next season I am preparing. In the next part, I will reveal why certain people had to leave your life and why their departure was not your destruction. It was your preparation. Stay with me, because the next revelation may completely change how you view every goodbye you have ever experienced. If you're still listening and you know God carried you through battles you should not have survived, comment, God made me stronger. And if this message is speaking directly to your journey, subscribe and stay connected. The next chapter will reveal why some departures were actually divine protection. As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Genesis 50:20, my beloved child, there are names you still remember, faces you have not forgotten, conversations that still echo in your mind, moments that sometimes return without warning. You may not think about them every day anymore. The pain may not be as sharp as it once was, but somewhere deep inside, part of you still wonders. Why did they leave? Why did they change? Why did they walk away? Why did they betray the trust you gave them? Why did they become a lesson instead of a blessing? I know those questions. I have heard them many times. Sometimes through spoken prayers, sometimes through silent tears, sometimes through moments when your heart whispered things your lips never said. And today, my child, I want to reveal something that may completely change how you view those departures. Because not everyone who left your life was removed to hurt you. Some were removed to protect you. Stay with me. This next truth is important. There was a time when you believed certain people would always remain. You imagined future chapters with them. You imagined future victories with them. You imagined future memories with them. You trusted them. You invested in them. You prayed for them. You loved them. And because of that, their departure felt personal, deeply personal. It felt like rejection. It felt like abandonment. It felt like proof that something was wrong with you. But my child, what if their departure had very little to do with your worth? What if it had everything to do with your future? Because there is something many people never understand. Not everyone assigned to your life is assigned to your destiny. Some people are assigned to a season. Some people are assigned to a lesson. Some people are assigned to reveal something. Some people are assigned to prepare you. But not everyone is assigned to stay. And when seasons change, assignments change too. That does not mean the connection was meaningless. It simply means the purpose was completed. Yet, when people leave, the enemy often whispers dangerous lies. He tells you, they left because you weren't enough. They left because you failed. They left because you are unlovable. They left because something is wrong with you. My beloved, those lies have wounded many hearts, but they are still lies. Because your value was never determined by who stayed. Your value was never determined by who left. Your identity was never created by another person's opinion. Your identity was established by me long before anyone entered your life. Long before anyone rejected you. Long before anyone betrayed you. Long before anyone misunderstood you. You belonged to me before any of those chapters began, and you still belong to me now. The enemy wanted those departures to create insecurity, but heaven used those departures to create clarity. Clarity about who truly belongs in your future. Clarity about who supports your growth. Clarity about who celebrates your purpose. Clarity about who can be trusted with the next season of your life. Because not everyone can go where I am taking you. Listen carefully. This next part matters. There are people you cried over losing. People you begged me to keep. People you desperately tried to hold on to. And at the time, you believed losing them would destroy your future. But if they had remained, they might have delayed it. If they had remained, they might have distracted it. If they had remained, they might have weakened it. You could not see that then, because pain narrows vision. Pain only sees what is leaving. Wisdom eventually sees what is coming. And there are blessings approaching your life right now that require space. Space that could not exist if everything from your past remained. Space that could not exist if every old attachment survived. Space that could not exist if every chapter refused to end. My child, even nature understands this principle. Leaves fall before new growth appears. Winter clears the ground before spring arrives. Seeds break before harvest emerges. And many of the departures you experienced were part of a similar process. A painful process, but a necessary one. Because growth often requires separation. Transformation often requires transition. And transition almost always involves letting go. The enemy wanted you to focus only on the loss. He wanted you to stare at the empty chair, the unanswered message, the broken relationship, the closed chapter, the missing person. Because if he could keep your attention on what left, you might never see what was arriving. But heaven was already preparing new things, new relationships, new opportunities, new wisdom, new strength, new purpose, new assignments. While you were grieving the departure, heaven was arranging the next chapter. That is the part you could not see, and it is the part darkness never wanted you to discover. Because every goodbye created room for something greater. Not necessarily easier, not necessarily immediate, but greater. My beloved, there were also people who revealed their true nature when your season became difficult. Have you noticed that? Some people celebrated you when everything was easy, but disappeared when the battle began. Some applauded your victories, but withdrew during your struggles. Some claimed loyalty until loyalty became inconvenient, And although that hurt deeply, it revealed something valuable. Pressure reveals character. Storms reveal foundations. Difficulty reveals motives. The battle exposed who was genuinely connected to your purpose and who was merely connected to your comfort. And while that revelation hurt, it was still a gift. Because false support is more dangerous than visible opposition. At least opposition shows itself. False support hides behind smiles. False support hides behind words. False support hides behind appearances. And some departures happened because I was uncovering things you could not yet see. I was revealing what would eventually become obvious. Not to embarrass you, not to punish anyone, but to protect your future. Protection often arrives disguised as separation. That is a truth many people learn too late. My child, there are still moments when certain memories hurt. I know that. There are still moments when you wonder what could have been. I know that too, but hear me carefully. You do not need every answer to move forward. You do not need every explanation to heal. You do not need every person to understand your value, because your future does not depend on who left. Your future depends on me, and I have never left. Not once. Not during betrayal, not during heartbreak, not during loneliness, not during disappointment, not during the nights when tears were your only companion. I remained, I stayed, I walked beside you, I carried you, and because I remained, your story continued. The departure was not the end. The betrayal was not the end. The heartbreak was not the end. The rejection was not the end. In many ways, those moments were only the beginning, because the people who left made room for the person you are becoming. Stronger, wiser, more discerning, more resilient, more prepared, more aligned with your purpose. And darkness never expected that outcome. The enemy expected bitterness, you gained wisdom. The enemy expected despair, you gained strength. The enemy expected isolation, you gained dependence on me. The enemy expected destruction, you gained transformation. And now the story shifts again, because the departures were only one part of the process. There was another battle happening behind the scenes, a battle connected to the delays, the waiting, the unanswered questions, the long seasons when nothing seemed to move. You thought the delay was working against you, but the truth is far more powerful. The delay was working for you. And in the next part, I will reveal the hidden purpose behind the waiting. Why the delay was never denial, why the silence was never abandonment, and why heaven was preparing something during the very season you thought nothing was happening. Stay with me, because the next revelation may finally explain the waiting season you have carried for so long. If God removed people from your life that you later realized were not part of your future, comment, God made room for my next season. And remember, what left your life is not always evidence of loss. Sometimes it is evidence of preparation. For the vision is yet for an appointed time. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. Habakkuk 2:3. My beloved child, there is something about waiting that tests the human heart unlike anything else. Pain is difficult. Disappointment is difficult, loss is difficult. But waiting carries a different kind of weight, because pain eventually reveals itself. Loss eventually becomes visible. Disappointment eventually has a name. But waiting lives in uncertainty. Waiting asks you to keep believing when you cannot see. Waiting asks you to trust when nothing appears to be changing. Waiting asks you to move forward without having all the answers. And if you are honest, my child, there were seasons when the waiting exhausted you. You kept expecting something to happen. You kept expecting the breakthrough, the answer, the opportunity, the healing, the restoration, the change. Yet day after day, everything looked the same. Month after month, everything looked the same. And after a while, you began asking questions. Questions many of my children ask. Why is this taking so long? Did I miss something? Did I make a mistake? Has God forgotten me? Is my answer ever coming? I know those questions. I heard every one of them, even the ones you never spoke aloud, even the ones hidden deep inside your heart. And today, I want to reveal something that the enemy never wanted you to understand. The delay was never your enemy. The delay was part of the preparation. Stay with me, because this truth changes everything. The enemy wanted you to interpret waiting as rejection. He wanted you to believe that delay meant denial. He wanted you to believe that silence meant absence. He wanted you to believe that because nothing was visible, nothing was happening. But my child, some of the most important work I do happens during seasons of waiting. Because waiting is where trust matures. Waiting is where character develops. Waiting is where motives become clear. Waiting is where roots grow deep enough to support future blessings. The enemy only looked at the calendar. Heaven looked at your development. The enemy measured time. Heaven measured readiness. The enemy counted delays. Heaven counted growth, and those are very different things. Think about Joseph. The dream came long before the palace. Think about David. The anointing came long before the throne. Think about Moses. The calling came long before the deliverance. Again and again, my plans included preparation before manifestation. Not because I enjoy making my children wait, but because what is coming often requires a version of you that does not yet exist. And that was true in your life as well. You were asking for the blessing. I was preparing the person who would receive it. You were asking for the opportunity. I was developing the wisdom needed to handle it. You were asking for the door to open. I was strengthening the character needed to walk through it. You saw delay, I saw preparation. And while you were watching the clock, heaven was shaping your future. My beloved, there is another truth you need to hear. Not every delay came from heaven alone. Some delays came because darkness understood the value of what was coming. The enemy could not cancel my purpose, but he could attempt to discourage you before it arrived. He could attempt to exhaust you before the breakthrough appeared. He could attempt to convince you that waiting was pointless, because if he could make you quit during the delay, you would never see the fulfillment. That was always the strategy, not destruction. Discouragement, not defeat. Exhaustion, not immediate failure. Premature surrender. The enemy hoped the waiting would wear you down. He hoped the unanswered questions would overwhelm you. He hoped uncertainty would become stronger than faith. He hoped you would walk away from the very thing you had prayed for. But my child, you did not. There were moments when you came close. Moments when your faith felt tired. Moments when hope felt distant. Moments when you wondered whether anything would ever change. Yet somehow, you continued. You kept showing up. You kept praying. You kept trusting. You kept believing. And every time you did, darkness lost ground. Because every day you remained faithful was another day the enemy's strategy failed. Every day you continued believing was another day closer to fulfillment. Every day you refused to quit was another victory heaven recorded. You thought you were merely surviving, but you were actually overcoming. And now something important is happening. The very delay that once frustrated you is beginning to make sense. Not completely, not all at once, but gradually. Because you are starting to see who you have become. You are not the same person who entered the waiting season. You see differently now. You discern differently now. You trust differently now. You respond differently now. The waiting changed you, not by weakening you, by preparing you. That is why some answers could not arrive earlier, not because I was withholding them, because you were still becoming the person capable of carrying them. Imagine placing a great weight upon a weak foundation. The structure collapses. Imagine giving responsibility before maturity arrives. The blessing becomes a burden. Imagine receiving abundance without wisdom. The gift becomes dangerous. And because I love you, I refuse to rush what needed preparation. You interpreted that as delay. I interpreted it as protection. The same protection that closed doors. The same protection that removed people. The same protection that strengthened roots. the same protection that kept you alive through seasons you did not understand. My child, there is a reason you survived longer than darkness expected. Because heaven never measured your future by your current season. Heaven always saw what was ahead, even when you could not. Even when nothing around you suggested progress. Even when the road looked empty, I saw the appointed time. The enemy only saw the present moment. And that is why darkness kept making the same mistake. The enemy believed delay meant defeat, but heaven knew delay was development. The enemy believed silence meant absence, but heaven knew silence was preparation. The enemy believed waiting meant failure, but heaven knew waiting was positioning. And now the positioning is nearly complete. You may not realize it yet, but things are shifting, quietly, subtly, powerfully. The waiting season that once felt endless is no longer producing the same lesson, because the lesson has largely been learned. The roots have largely grown. The strength has largely developed. The endurance has largely formed. The foundation has largely been established. And when foundations are complete, structures begin to rise. That is why you are sensing change. Perhaps you cannot fully explain it. Perhaps you cannot yet see visible evidence. But something feels different because something is different. The season is turning. The atmosphere is changing. The chapter is shifting. The enemy feels it too. That is why discouragement sometimes increases right before breakthrough. That is why doubt often becomes louder near the finish line. That is why fear often intensifies when a season is ending. Darkness senses what is coming, and it is trying one last time to convince you to quit. One last time to surrender. One last time to walk away. But my beloved, you have come too far now. You survived the loneliness. You survived the betrayal. You survived the disappointment. You survived the waiting. You survived the silence. And because you survived all of that, there is something the enemy is beginning to realize. A realization he never wanted to face. The battle may have lasted longer than expected. The delay may have lasted longer than expected. The storm may have lasted longer than expected. But you are still standing, and that changes everything. Because there comes a moment in every battle when darkness realizes it has already lost. Not when the blessing arrives, not when the breakthrough becomes visible, but when the child of God refuses to quit. That moment is closer than you think. And in the next part, I will reveal the exact moment the enemy realized he had lost the battle over your life. Stay with me, because this next revelation may be the most powerful truth you have heard so far. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Revelation 12:11. My beloved child, there is something the enemy never expected, something he never planned for, something he never wanted to happen. And yet it happened anyway. You survived. Not perfectly, not without scars, not without tears, not without nights of questioning, but you survived. And there came a moment when darkness realized something it never wanted to admit. It was losing, not because every problem disappeared, not because every prayer was answered, not because every battle suddenly stopped, but because you refused to quit. Stay with me, because this truth changes everything. For a long time, the enemy believed victory was only a matter of time. He watched the delays. He watched the disappointments. He watched the betrayals. He watched the loneliness. He watched the exhaustion. And he convinced himself that eventually you would surrender. Eventually, you would stop believing. Eventually, you would stop praying. Eventually, you would stop hoping. Eventually, you would walk away. That was always the expectation, not immediate destruction. Gradual surrender. The enemy never needed one massive defeat. He only needed you to stop moving forward, one step at a time, one prayer at a time, one act of faith at a time. Because if you stopped, the journey would stop. If you stopped, the growth would stop. If you stopped, the testimony would never be completed. That was the strategy, and for a while, it seemed possible. There were seasons when your strength felt almost gone. Seasons when your heart felt weary, seasons when your faith felt fragile, seasons when everything around you suggested surrender. Yet something kept happening that darkness could not understand. You kept getting back up, again and again and again. My child, the enemy expected the first disappointment to stop you. It did not. The enemy expected the second setback to stop you. It did not. The enemy expected the betrayal to stop you. It did not. The enemy expected the delay to stop you. It did not. The enemy expected the loneliness to stop you. It did not. The enemy expected the unanswered questions to stop you. It did not. And after enough failed attempts, something became obvious. The attacks were not producing the result darkness expected, because every attack that should have ended your story only became another chapter in it. Every battle that should have destroyed your faith only deepened it. Every storm that should have uprooted you only strengthened your roots. Every disappointment that should have hardened your heart only pushed you closer to me. That was never supposed to happen, at least not from the enemy's perspective. Because darkness understands destruction, but darkness does not understand redemption. The enemy understands wounds, but he does not understand healing. The enemy understands suffering, but he does not understand transformation. The enemy understands attacks, but he does not understand what happens when I take those attacks and use them for growth. That is where every calculation failed. Because while darkness focused on hurting you, I was strengthening you. While darkness focused on delaying you, I was preparing you. While darkness focused on exhausting you, I was developing endurance. While darkness focused on your present pain, I was building your future testimony. And eventually the evidence became impossible to ignore. You were still standing, my beloved. Do you know when the enemy truly began losing? Not when your breakthrough started, not when your season changed, not when blessings appeared, not when doors opened. The enemy began losing the moment you decided not to quit. That was the turning point, the moment you chose to keep going despite the pain, the moment you chose to trust despite the uncertainty, the moment you chose faith despite the silence, the moment you chose hope despite disappointment. That moment changed everything. Because that moment proved something powerful. Your circumstances no longer controlled your faith. Your situation no longer controlled your identity. Your struggle no longer controlled your future. You had become anchored somewhere deeper. And once that happened, darkness lost its greatest weapon: fear. Because fear only works when people believe the storm is greater than their future. Fear only works when people believe the pain is greater than the promise. Fear only works when people believe the battle is greater than the one fighting beside them. But over time, something changed inside you. You began realizing that I had carried you before, and if I carried you before, I could carry you again. You began remembering previous victories, previous rescues, previous seasons that looked impossible but somehow ended differently than expected. And those memories created strength, strength that darkness could not steal. My child, that is why you are still here today. Not because the battle was small, the battle was real. Not because the pain was imaginary, the pain was real. Not because the waiting was easy, the waiting was difficult. But none of those things proved stronger than my faithfulness. That is the truth the enemy never wanted you to discover. You were never fighting alone. Never. Even during the nights when you felt abandoned. Even during the moments when heaven seemed silent. Even during the seasons when nothing made sense. I was there, working, protecting, guiding, strengthening, sustaining. And because I remained, the battle could never end the way darkness planned. The enemy thought your weakness would define you. Instead, my strength sustained you. The enemy thought your fear would define you. Instead, my presence comforted you. The enemy thought your failures would define you. Instead, my grace restored you. The enemy thought your wounds would define you. Instead, your healing began. One by one, every prediction failed. One by one, Every expectation collapsed. One by one, every attempt to stop your purpose became another reason you grew stronger. And now darkness faces a reality it cannot change. You survived longer than expected. You endured longer than expected. You remained faithful longer than expected. You continued believing longer than expected. You are still here. And because you are still here, the story is still unfolding. My beloved, there is another truth that makes this even more powerful. The enemy did not only lose because you survived. The enemy lost because your survival is becoming a testimony. The very thing intended to destroy you is becoming evidence that I protected you. The very thing intended to silence you is becoming a story that encourages others. The very thing intended to break your faith is becoming proof of my faithfulness. And that transformation terrifies darkness, because darkness can attack a person, but it struggles to stop a testimony. Darkness can create wounds, but it struggles to erase what healing produces. Darkness can create battles, but it struggles to silence a life that has already survived them. Which means something important. Your greatest victory may not be what happens next. Your greatest victory may be the fact that you are still standing now, the fact that you are still listening, still believing, still seeking, still moving forward. That alone is evidence that darkness failed. And my child, if the enemy has already failed to stop you until now, what makes you think he will stop what I am about to do next? Think about that. The attacks came, you remained. The storms came, you remained. The waiting came, you remained. The disappointments came, you remained. If all of those things could not stop your story, then perhaps your story is stronger than you realized. Perhaps your future is closer than you think. Perhaps your breakthrough is already beginning. Because heaven does not waste survival. Heaven does not waste preparation. Heaven does not waste endurance. Everything you have lived through has been building towards something bigger than the battle, something greater than the delay, something more powerful than the attack. And now we arrive at the next revelation, a revelation that explains why you were allowed to survive in the first place. Because survival was never the final goal. There was a purpose behind it, a purpose connected to other people, a purpose connected to your story, a purpose connected to the lives you have not impacted yet. In the next part, I will reveal why heaven allowed you to survive what should have destroyed you, and why your story may become someone else's rescue. Stay with me, because the next truth will reveal a purpose bigger than the pain you have carried. If you made it this far, declare this below: the enemy lost when I didn't quit. Because sometimes the greatest victory is not that the battle ended. Sometimes the greatest victory is that you are still standing. He comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. 2 Corinthians 1:4. My beloved child, there is a question hidden beneath every battle, a question hidden beneath every scar, a question hidden beneath every season of pain. Why? Why did it happen? Why did it last so long? Why did it hurt so deeply? Why did you have to walk through it? For years, perhaps you have asked those questions. Perhaps you asked them through tears. Perhaps you asked them in silence. Perhaps you asked them while staring into the darkness, wondering if any meaning could ever come from what you endured. And today, I want to reveal something that the enemy never wanted you to understand. You did not survive by accident. You survived for a reason. Stay with me, because this truth may completely change the way you view your entire story. My child, the enemy believed survival was the problem, but heaven knew survival was the beginning. The enemy thought the goal was simply to hurt you, but heaven was looking far beyond the pain, far beyond the battle, far beyond the waiting, far beyond the tears. Because I was never focused only on what you were going through. I was also focused on who you were becoming. And even more than that, I was focused on who you would one day help. This is the part many people never see. When suffering first arrives, everything feels personal. The wound is personal. The disappointment is personal. The heartbreak is personal. The struggle is personal. And understandably so, because pain demands attention. Pain narrows vision. Pain makes the world feel small. Pain convinces you that the battle is only about survival. But my child, your story was never only about you. Your story carries influence. Your story carries purpose. Your story carries the power to reach people you have never met. People who will one day find hope because you endured. People who will one day keep going because you survived. People who will one day believe again because they hear your testimony. And that changes everything. Because suddenly the battle is no longer only about surviving. It is about preparing a message, preparing a testimony, preparing a future impact, preparing a rescue for someone else. The enemy never saw that part coming. He thought the wound was the final chapter. He did not realize the wound would eventually become wisdom. He thought the struggle would silence you. He did not realize the struggle would give you a voice. He thought the pain would isolate you. He did not realize the pain would connect you to people who need exactly what you learned. That is one of the greatest mysteries of my kingdom. The very thing meant to destroy often becomes the very thing that helps others survive. Think about it. Who comforts the grieving best? Usually someone who has experienced grief. Who understands betrayal best? Usually someone who has survived betrayal. Who understands loneliness best? Usually someone who has walked through loneliness. Who understands waiting best? Usually someone who has endured waiting. Your struggle created understanding. Your battle created compassion. Your survival created wisdom. And one day, those gifts will become someone's answer. My beloved, there are people praying right now for strength. People crying right now the way you once cried. People questioning right now the way you once questioned. People struggling right now the way you once struggled. And what if part of the reason you survived was because one day they would need your story? What if part of the reason you endured was because one day they would need your perspective? What if part of the reason you made it through was because someone else would need proof that survival is possible? Because sometimes I answer prayers through people. Sometimes I bring hope through testimonies. Sometimes I bring encouragement through survivors. And my child, you are becoming one of those survivors. The enemy never expected that. The enemy expected your story to end in defeat. Instead, your story is becoming evidence of my faithfulness. And evidence is powerful because people can argue with opinions. But they struggle to argue with testimony. They struggle to argue with transformation. They struggle to argue with a life that should have fallen apart but somehow remained standing. That is why your survival matters, not only for you, but for others. The enemy wanted your pain to become your prison. Heaven is turning your pain into a platform, not a platform for attention, a platform for purpose, a platform for healing, a platform for impact, a platform for hope. Because the things you learned in darkness are too valuable to remain hidden forever. The lessons learned in the valley carry power. The strength developed through suffering carries authority. The wisdom earned through endurance carries influence. And one day those things will bless people you cannot currently imagine. My beloved, there is another truth you need to hear. You often judge your story by what you lost. Heaven judges your story by what was preserved. You focus on the doors that closed. Heaven focuses on the purpose that survived. You focus on the battles that happened. Heaven focuses on the person who emerged from them. And that person is remarkable, not because you are perfect, not because you never failed, not because you never struggled, but because you kept getting back up again and again. You survived disappointments that should have crushed your confidence. You survived delays that should have destroyed your hope. You survived betrayals that should have hardened your heart. You survived seasons that should have broken your spirit. Yet here you are, still listening, still believing, still moving forward. That is not weakness, that is evidence. Evidence that I have been working in your life all along. Evidence that my hand has remained upon you. Evidence that your story carries purpose. And purpose always survives what was sent to destroy it. That is why darkness became so determined to stop you. Because darkness saw purpose before you did. Darkness saw potential before you recognized it. Darkness saw influence before you understood it. The attacks were never random. The pressure was never random. The opposition was never random. There was something valuable being protected. Something worth fighting for. Something worth surviving for. And now you are beginning to understand what it was. It was not merely your future, it was your purpose. The purpose connected to your testimony. The purpose connected to your influence. The purpose connected to the lives you will touch. The purpose connected to people who have not entered your story yet. My child, there are conversations waiting to happen. People waiting to be encouraged. Lives waiting to be impacted. Hearts waiting to be strengthened. And the wisdom you gained through survival is part of that future. Nothing was wasted. Not the tears, not the waiting, not the setbacks, not the heartbreaks, not the delays, not the battles. I have been weaving all of it together. Every chapter, every struggle, every lesson, every victory. And soon you will begin seeing the larger picture. Soon you will understand why certain things happened. Soon you will see how pieces connect. Soon you will recognize that survival itself was preparation. Preparation for purpose, preparation for impact, preparation for the next season. Because, my child, the story is not ending with survival. Survival was only the foundation. Something new is beginning. Something is already moving. Something is already shifting. Something is already emerging. You keep looking for the breakthrough. You keep waiting for the breakthrough. You keep expecting the breakthrough. But what if I told you something surprising? What if the breakthrough has already begun? What if the signs are already around you? What if the season has already started changing? What if the new chapter is already unfolding? Most people miss it because they are looking for dramatic evidence. But heaven often begins quietly, like a seed, like a sunrise, like the first signs of spring after a long winter. And in the next part, I will reveal the breakthrough that has already started, the signs you may have overlooked, the evidence that your season is changing, and why your future may be much closer than you realize. Stay with me, because the next revelation may completely transform the way you see this moment in your life. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Isaiah 43:19. My beloved child, there is something I need you to understand. The breakthrough you have been waiting for may not be where you think it is. For a long time, you have imagined breakthrough as a dramatic moment, a single event, a sudden answer, a miraculous change, an unmistakable sign. And sometimes breakthroughs do arrive that way. But often, the most important breakthroughs begin quietly, so quietly that many people miss them. They keep waiting for the future while standing in the middle of what they prayed for. They keep looking for dramatic evidence while overlooking subtle transformation. They keep expecting an ending while heaven is already beginning something new. And my child, that may be exactly where you are right now. Stay with me, because what I am about to reveal could completely change the way you see your current season. The enemy wanted you to believe nothing was changing. He wanted you to believe the waiting was still ongoing. He wanted you to believe the battle was exactly the same as it had always been. But that is not true. Something has already shifted. Something has already begun. Something has already started moving beneath the surface. The challenge is that you have been looking for one type of evidence, while heaven has been providing another. My beloved, think back to the person you were when this journey began. Not physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. Think about how you responded to fear. Think about how you responded to disappointment. Think about how you responded to delays. Think about how you responded to uncertainty. Now compare that person to the one listening to these words today. You are different, stronger, wiser, more discerning, more stable, more grounded, more aware of my presence. That change is not small. That change is breakthrough. Because before circumstances change around you, transformation often begins within you. And something within you has changed. The enemy sees external conditions. Heaven sees internal development. The enemy watches circumstances. Heaven watches character. The enemy measures appearances. Heaven measures transformation, and transformation has already begun. The proof is everywhere. You simply have not been recognizing it. There are things that once controlled your emotions that no longer carry the same power. There are fears that once dominated your thoughts that no longer feel as overwhelming. There are disappointments that once would have crushed you that now only slow you down temporarily. There are battles that once seemed impossible that now seem survivable. Why? Because you have changed, and whenever you change, your future changes too. That is how breakthrough often begins, not with a door opening, but with a person becoming ready to walk through it. My child, have you noticed certain shifts recently? Small shifts, subtle shifts, moments that seem easy to overlook. Perhaps a new sense of peace, perhaps a new sense of clarity, perhaps a new awareness of my presence, perhaps a growing confidence that you cannot fully explain, perhaps a quiet feeling that something is different. Those things matter more than you realize, because before a harvest appears above ground, life begins beneath the soil. Before spring arrives fully, signs appear gradually. Before sunrise fills the sky, light begins touching the horizon. And many of the signs you have been praying for are already appearing. The enemy hoped you would overlook them, because if you overlook progress, you become discouraged. If you overlook growth, you become impatient. If you overlook transformation, you begin believing nothing is happening. And that is exactly what darkness wants. But my child, something is happening, something important, something significant. Something that is moving your life toward the next chapter. You may not see the entire picture yet, but the picture is forming. You may not understand every detail yet, but the details are aligning. You may not recognize every step yet, but the steps are unfolding, and heaven is moving more than you realize. My beloved, one of the greatest mistakes people make is believing breakthrough only arrives when external circumstances change. But true breakthrough begins much earlier. It begins when fear loses authority. It begins when hope returns. It begins when faith survives disappointment. It begins when peace remains despite uncertainty. It begins when trust becomes stronger than doubt. And if those things are happening inside you, then breakthrough has already started, because circumstances eventually follow transformation. What happens inside eventually influences what happens outside. The roots produce fruit. The foundation supports the structure. The preparation leads to manifestation. And that is exactly where your story is heading. The enemy knows it. That is why discouragement sometimes grows louder near the end of a difficult season. Darkness senses movement. Darkness senses change. Darkness senses transition. And when transition begins, fear often makes one final attempt. One final attempt to convince you that nothing is happening. One final attempt to convince you that the breakthrough is still far away. One final attempt to convince you to quit. But my child, look how far you have come. You survived the storm. You survived the delay. You survived the disappointment. You survived the waiting. You survived the loneliness. You survived the questions. And now you are standing in a place that once seemed impossible to reach. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are still here. And your survival itself is evidence that something greater is unfolding. My beloved, the signs are already appearing. Not all at once, not dramatically, but steadily. You are seeing things differently. You are hearing things differently. You are responding differently. You are growing differently. You are trusting differently. You are becoming the person heaven was preparing all along. That is not coincidence, that is progress. That is preparation, that is breakthrough beginning to emerge. And there is another sign you may have overlooked. You are still hungry for my voice. After everything you have endured, you are still listening, still seeking, still believing, still reaching toward me. The enemy expected bitterness, yet you are still seeking me. The enemy expected surrender, yet you are still listening. The enemy expected despair, yet you are still hoping. The enemy expected silence, yet you are still praying. Do you understand how significant that is? That alone proves the battle did not achieve its intended purpose. That alone proves darkness failed, because the goal was never simply to create pain. The goal was to separate you from me, and it did not work. You are still here, still connected, still moving forward. And that means the enemy's greatest strategy has already failed. My child, there is one final revelation remaining, one final truth that brings everything together. A truth that explains why you survived, why the attacks failed, why the delays did not destroy you, why the darkness miscalculated, why heaven remained confident when everything looked impossible. The enemy studied your weakness. The enemy studied your wounds. The enemy studied your disappointments. The enemy studied your fears. But he overlooked one thing that changes everything, one thing stronger than every attack, one thing greater than every battle, one thing that was with you through every chapter. And in the next part, I will reveal the enemy's biggest mistake, the mistake that guaranteed your survival from the very beginning. Stay with me, because the final revelation changes the entire story. Being confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Philippians 1:6. My beloved child, we have reached the truth that changes everything. The truth hidden beneath every battle, every delay, every disappointment, every closed door, every tear, every lonely night, every moment when you wondered whether you would make it. This is the revelation the enemy never wanted you to discover. The revelation that explains why you are still here. The revelation that explains why the attacks failed. The revelation that explains why your story did not end where darkness expected it to. Because the enemy made a mistake, a massive mistake. The greatest mistake of all. Stay with me, because this final truth brings every chapter together. For years, the enemy studied your weaknesses. He watched your fears. He watched your insecurities. He watched your disappointments. He watched your struggles. He watched your wounds. He watched every difficult season. And based on everything he observed, he reached a conclusion that seemed logical, a conclusion that seemed inevitable, a conclusion that appeared certain. The enemy thought you would quit by now. He truly did. He thought the pressure would eventually become too much. He thought the waiting would eventually become unbearable. He thought the loneliness would eventually overwhelm you. He thought the disappointment would eventually destroy your hope. He thought the betrayals would eventually harden your heart. He thought the silence would eventually weaken your faith. He thought the battles would eventually break your spirit. And according to every natural calculation, perhaps they should have. Because there were moments when your strength was exhausted, moments when your heart was wounded, moments when your faith felt fragile, moments when you could barely see the next step, moments when everything looked impossible. The enemy saw those moments, and every time he saw them, he assumed the ending was near. But there was something he failed to account for, something he could never fully understand, something stronger than every attack he launched. Something greater than every strategy he designed. Something more powerful than every fear he tried to create. My presence, that was his mistake. The enemy studied you, but he failed to study me. The enemy measured your weakness, but he failed to measure my strength. The enemy calculated your limitations, but he failed to calculate my faithfulness. The enemy focused on your wounds, but he ignored my healing. The enemy focused on your exhaustion, but he ignored my sustaining power. The enemy focused on your circumstances, but he ignored my promises. And because of that, every prediction he made was flawed from the beginning. My beloved, darkness kept looking at the wrong evidence. It looked at your tears and assumed defeat. It looked at your waiting and assumed abandonment. It looked at your struggles and assumed weakness. It looked at your delays and assumed failure. But heaven saw something entirely different. Heaven saw a child being carried. Heaven saw roots growing. Heaven saw strength developing. Heaven saw faith maturing. Heaven saw purpose surviving. Heaven saw a future still unfolding. The enemy thought he was watching the end of your story. He was actually watching the beginning of your transformation. That was the mistake. And the longer your journey continued, the bigger that mistake became. Because every day you remained standing became evidence that heaven was involved. Every day you continued believing became evidence that my hand was still upon your life. Every day you survived became evidence that darkness did not have final authority. And eventually the truth became undeniable. You were not surviving because you were strong enough. You were surviving because I never left. Think about that. There were moments when your own strength was gone. You know that. Moments when you had nothing left to give, nothing left to prove, nothing left to rely upon. Yet somehow you continued. Why? Because I carried what you could not carry. I sustained what you could not sustain. I strengthened what you could not strengthen. I protected what you could not protect. And because I remained faithful, your story continued. The enemy never expected that. He expected you to rely only on yourself. He expected your strength to determine the outcome. He expected your emotions to determine the outcome. He expected your circumstances to determine the outcome. But my child, your future was never determined by any of those things. Your future was always connected to my purpose, and my purpose does not fail. That is why every attack eventually reached a limit. Every storm eventually reached a limit. Every delay eventually reached a limit. Every season of opposition eventually reached a limit. Because darkness is powerful, but darkness is not sovereign. Darkness can attack, but darkness cannot rewrite my promises. Darkness can delay, but darkness cannot cancel my purpose. Darkness can create obstacles, but darkness cannot destroy what I have chosen to preserve. And you, my child, were preserved, not because you were perfect, not because you never doubted, not because you never struggled, but because my hand remained upon your life. That is why you survived longer than darkness expected. That is why the story continued. That is why the attacks failed. That is why you are listening to these words right now. Because heaven never abandoned the work it started in you, not once. My beloved, as you look back now, can you see the pattern? The heartbreak did not end you. The betrayal did not end you. The rejection did not end you. The waiting did not end you. The delay did not end you. The loneliness did not end you. The fear did not end you. The storm did not end you. The attack did not end you. Everything that was supposed to stop you became another chapter you survived. Everything that was supposed to defeat you became another testimony you carry. Everything that was supposed to destroy your faith became another reason you trust me more deeply. That is not coincidence. That is my faithfulness. And now we arrive at the final realization. The enemy thought your story would be defined by what happened to you. Heaven knew your story would be defined by what survived. The enemy thought your story would end in weakness. Heaven knew it would reveal strength. The enemy thought your story would end in defeat. Heaven knew it would reveal purpose. The enemy thought your story would end in darkness. Heaven knew it would reveal my light. The enemy thought you would quit. Heaven knew you would survive. That was the difference. And today, the evidence is undeniable. You are still here. Read those words again. You are still here after everything that happened. After everything that tried to stop you. After everything that tried to discourage you. After everything that tried to convince you to surrender, you are still here. That simple fact destroys every prediction darkness made about your life. You survived, not because the battle was easy, not because the pain was small, not because the storm was imaginary, but because I was with you through all of it. And I am still with you now, my child. The same God who carried you through the storm will carry you into the promise. The same God who protected you in the valley will guide you on the mountain. The same God who sustained you through the waiting will sustain you through the blessing. The same God who preserved your life will fulfill his purpose for your life. Because your story is not ending here. It is continuing. The next chapter is already unfolding. The next season is already approaching. The next testimony is already forming. And when you finally look back on this entire journey, you will understand something that darkness never understood. You were never fighting alone, and that is why the enemy lost. Because his greatest mistake was believing your survival depended only on you. It never did. It depended on me, and I have never failed. Never. If this message reached you at exactly the right moment, declare it boldly. I survived for a reason. And if you believe God carried you through battles you should not have survived, comment, the enemy thought I would quit. God knew I would survive. Remember this truth as you leave today. The enemy studied your weakness, but he forgot to account for God's presence, and that was his greatest mistake.